Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about some of the things I've been thinking about with Matthew 5 and 6 and the Sermon on the Mount, and just some thoughts that I have about what Jesus was really trying to drive at there and what's so freeing about the Sermon on the Mount. And what I've been thinking about lately is this group of people. There was this community that in Jesus's day had like left Jerusalem and gone out to the desert to live, so they could like take a day's walk away from their home and leave like a verdant and beautiful and flourishing green kind of lovely area and walk only one day and be in a desert. And they associated that desert life with this kind of austere but holy kind of way of living. And so there they were out in the desert, writing from the Old Testament and studying about the Messiah that would come. And to our great fortune, they saved those materials, which were later found in the 40s, the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's an extraordinary find, and it's amazing that we have them. And I would love to talk more about that another time for any of you who want to. But I really want to talk to you about who those people were. Because what's unique about them is that they were waiting for the Messiah with like a capital W. And by that, what I mean is that they had yielded their entire lives over to living purely. They moved out to the desert, away from their families, alone, men only. They dressed different, they ate different, they had this like communal lifestyle, and they had a lot of rules. Rules about purity. And I'm sure they were very good rules. And of course, they could never really meet them. So the end result was that they always felt like they need to get themselves more pure and more clean for the coming Messiah, who would come and make things right. And the more that they could kind of like make things right, then the more likely it would be that the Messiah would come. And so what they would do is they would take like ritual baths like up to 7 times a day to get themselves clean from the sin that was in them. And it kind of makes me think of this. That's a really human sort of thing to do. It's a natural thing for us to feel shame and guilt and to feel stupid about the things that we did, or to feel like we don't know how to get it right. Or the worst part of that is when we start to think, oh, look at these bad things that have happened to me. Look at how things aren't going the way that I want them to go. It must be something that I did. Sometimes it is something that we did, but I want you to think about what's wrong with that thinking. See, the Essenes, the people who lived in that desert community, they were familiar with the Old Testament laws. They lived the 10 Commandments, So it's like, do not murder, do not steal, do not commit adultery. And then they had lots of rules to go along with it. But I think like the way that they approached these things was like this. They approached it like, look, I'm not going to murder. See, I'm stepping like standing on hot lava, okay? I'm stepping on this stone. I haven't murdered anybody. I'm not falling into the lava. It's all good. It's all good. Haven't murdered anybody. Okay. Step to the next stone, hop over here. Okay, I'm not going to steal anything from anybody. I'm going to make sure that's not happening. Step to the next stone. Okay, I've never committed adultery against my wife. I've never cheated on her. So stepping on these stones, trying to avoid these disastrous consequences of falling into the hot lava and getting it just so right and wanting constantly to get cleaned up because you might not get it right. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is so different from that. It's really different from that. Because instead, you see him looking at the law and saying things that are like so radically different. So he says, do not murder. But I'm telling you, don't even talk bad about the guy next door. If you so much as call him a fool, like you've like murdered him. You've done him such damage just by talking like that about him. So don't talk bad about the guy next door. It's a higher calling, but it's the spirit of the calling. Who cares if you didn't murder anybody? If you can't like understand that hurting other people is the gist of what God was getting at. That he didn't want his people to be hurt. He didn't want them to be damaged. Okay, so don't steal. And he says, oh, this is so much more than stealing. You need to give to the needy. It's not, don't just be like, okay, I didn't take your stuff, but Jesus says, give your stuff away. And when he thinks about marriages, he says, hey, look, it isn't just about not having an affair with your wife. It's about, if you even look at a woman lustfully, like you have committed adultery. That means like you put poison in your relationship. You hurt her. You cause damage to that relationship. Love your wife. And so here's Jesus saying, love your neighbor. Don't talk bad about him. Give to the needy. Don't hold on to your stuff so tight. With your wife, like, you got to care for her in the little tiny things too. And on one hand, it's like a harder calling. On the other hand, it's a freer calling, because he's not saying, hey, look, I'm inviting you to step onto narrower and narrower rocks. That's not what he was doing. He said, this isn't about stepping from rock to rock at all. I'm inviting you to dive into the stream. I'm inviting you to dive into life-giving practices that will change you. I'm telling you that when the kingdom comes, it's going to look like that. It's not going to be about who stepped on the smallest stones and got things the most right. It will be about who dove in the river and learned how to love their neighbor and love their wife and live a life that was full and longing for the kingdom of God.